Happy Sunday. I wanted to kind of follow up on what I had said last night in my video about getting past fear and finding peace. I had mentioned about foundations. Everyone's different. I had said that my parents' foundation, for me was pretty good, but in all honesty, their foundation wasn't very good either. My mother grew up in foster care. Her mother was a young mom, and her father was her caretaker, and her mother was in a mental hospital. She was sick, and so my grandmother didn't have very much direction on being a woman. I don't believe there was any positive female figures in her life. And so when my mother was born, my grandmother was young. She was a teenager. And my mother was taken by Child Protective Services. I'm not sure the details on that, but my mother grew up in foster care. Her mother was a few towns over and would come to see her. And it was written in the documents from the social workers that my grandmother would tell my mother that she was her big sister instead of her mother. Speaking about it makes my heart race because that's a lot of pain there. And so as my mother grew up in foster homes, some of them bad enough where she had to be removed from them for abuse. She was put in wells for punishment. She went through a lot. She was also molested as well. And she spoke about it and was told not to say anything. The family wanted to make sure that they continued to get the checks for her. My grandmother would come and visit my mom. And a lot of those visits, my grandmother would make my mom feel bad about what she had on, how she looked, why she looked so poorly. My mother was a child, was out of her control. And my grandmother was very judgmental. She went on to get married. She had 2 more children, but she never spoke about my mom to friends, family, to her church family. My mom was kind of an outsider. And that's how she grew up. That was her foundation. My grandmother told my grandfather's side of the family that every time they wanted to see her that she was with the family friend. It wasn't till it was too late that my grandmother said that she was in foster care. My grandfather was in the service and didn't know all this was transpiring. That was my mother's foundation. And so looking back at it now, I can understand why my mom stayed in the situation she did with the man she was dating, the one that molested me. I'm not saying that it's right, but there's always something, somewhere in there where things are broken. My mom's broken, and at that time she was really broken. As for my father, he's from New Orleans, and he grew up with 4 siblings, and he was the second in line and the oldest boy. And my grandmother had a lot of mental health issues herself, and she struggled to raise them. My father worked as a little boy trying to make sure he was helpful to his mom and his siblings. My grandfather wasn't really around. He wasn't really involved. I can remember my father telling me stories about going to look for his father in bars, just to kind of spend time with him. And just struggling with being a young black man in the South at that time was difficult, and not really having a lot of male guidance, support. And so the two of these people came together and decided, we're going to change things. We're going to have a family. We're going to put them in private schools. We're going to have a house. We're going to go on family vacations. If we need something, we're going to be able to buy it. We're going to create this foundation for our two children, my older brother and I. But it didn't work. You're talking about two broken people that weren't healed, were still bringing their own traumas into this marriage and then having a family, and they did the best that they could. But looking back at it now and understanding where I'm at in my life, God has shown me that it was very difficult for that to work. Very, very difficult. And I'm just so thankful to God that He allowed me to see this. He allowed me to start to understand the generational curses in my family. My father's father leaving him. But my father was is an amazing father. He did the complete opposite of what my grandfather did. He's there. He's present. He still is very present in my life. And I have an amazing father. And the same thing with my mother. Her mother treated her poorly. But my mother, even though she made wrong decisions, she did her best. She did her best. And my mom, God bless her, she's been such an amazing help to me and supportive system. Same thing with my dad. So I just wanted to speak on that because it's so important to know that things don't just happen. You know, some of us are dealing with generational curses. And then I look at my situation with these men that didn't love me. I didn't love myself, and I was struggling. And here I have an older son who I didn't even listen to him. I didn't mention that in my story last night, but my children's father was hitting him while I was at work, and I didn't listen to my son. And I had to ask my son for forgiveness for that. And it was not something I'm proud of, but I can admit my wrongs. I was wrong for that. And I asked my son for forgiveness. He's 21 years old now. And just as God was opening my eyes to all the things that were going on that I was trying to close my eyes to, it helped me understand, do you want your twins, who are 5, to go through what your son did, to go through what their grandparents did, to continue to carry these generational curses with them onto their family? And that also gave me the strength to say, no more of this. This has to stop somewhere. God, if this is your way of using me to stop the generational curses in my family, then I accept it. Because I don't want them to go through the same things that we all went through. It has to stop somewhere. And so when I speak about bringing people around your children, I'm talking about me too. One person I did that with, and I've spoken about that person, and I'm glad that it wasn't too bad, but it still wasn't what they deserved, because they still ask about him and his children. And I don't want them to have a situation where mommy dates somebody and they come around and then they're gone. I'm not doing that. I want my children to understand what it means to have a foundation of parents that love them, a foundation where God is there holding it together. God is the center of the family. And so that's the other reason why I'm fighting so hard, is for them, to show them how to do it right, God's way. So I just want you to take what I've been dealing with and just help it open your eyes, if your eyes aren't already open, to the things that we create and relationships, the things that we bring into relationships that need healing. It's so important. And I've had this discussion with both of my parents. So I'm not speaking on anything that can't be spoken on. I just think it's so important that we look back at what we've dealt with and what our parents dealt with and what we come from and why we act the way we act and why we're dealing with things the way we deal with. My mother, another thing, my father was the one that paid all the bills. He had the credit cards, he had the good credit. So when my mother left, she didn't really know how to navigate finances. Yeah, I am going to speak on this. I'm just getting confirmation. So my father paid everything. He took care of everything. Good credit. My mom, she paid towards it, but she wasn't really responsible for the bills. So when we left, we had this other person in the house helping financially. But when he did leave, it was hard for my mother. She was working 3 jobs. I remember being home, and she would tell me, don't let anyone in, but I would let my friends in just so I'd have company because I was afraid. But she was doing the best that she could and sending me to private school because she thought that was going to be a good foundation for me. That's another video. Can't get all this into the same thing, but that's another video about private school, Catholic school. But she struggled in paying bills. There were times I would come home and the lights would be off, and I spoke about, us being evicted when she was sick and she couldn't pay in time. It's it makes you stronger, it makes you mindful. But my mom struggled with paying bills, so then I learned the same thing, struggle with bills. I just said, I'm gonna make sure that the lights never get cut off, but I still struggle. I was spending outside of my means, same way as my mother. Whereas my brother got his financial education from my dad. He's the complete opposite. He knows how to handle his finances, build his credit, save his money. Where I'm going with this is, you can be a product of your environment, but you can change, because I was the same way as my mom. And I'm just now learning how to be a better steward over what I make, what I have financially, and making right decisions and not living outside of my means. So I'm kind of going off topic, but I just want to express these things to you to understand that your foundation holds a lot of who you are and how to make sure you address it. And if there's things that need to be changed, change them. And if there's things that need to be healed, ask God to heal them. He'll even bring up stuff that you forgot about. As I had said, I forgot about being homeless for a short period of time. So I wanted to just get on here to make sure you understand when I said last night, about the foundation that my parents gave. That was also a broken foundation, because they were 2 broken people that just wanted to have happiness and have a family and have love. But they still were dealing with their own issues. And my mother is 74 and my father is 80 years old. Strong people, amazing people. And I'm just so proud to be their daughter, and so proud to be able to speak on these topics, so that their pain, what they went through, those generational curses, they know are going to be broken down the line through their grandchildren. So I'm praying this message reaches you. I know for sure it resonates with at least one person. That's why I do this. I know it means that someone needs to hear this. When God says you need to talk, I'm going to be obedient and start talking. So I pray this message reaches you. It's Sunday morning. I pray that you're going to have an amazing day. I'm getting ready to get up, get dressed, and go to church and go see my dad and have an amazing rest of my weekend, because it goes by so fast. You really have to make sure you take the time to enjoy yourself, self-care, and just love yourself and continue to ask God to come into your life. So God bless you, and until the next time, I salute the divinity in you.